Which team can challenge the Steelers? Is there one?
Yeah, there better be. What do you think, Rich?
I like the Ravens. Just the Ravens, every year they're in it, right? They're always in the run. They played great defense last year. I actually had them picked to make the playoffs last year and to be that team that nobody wanted to see in the playoffs. They were sneaky good. They run the ball really well with Alex Collins that we just talked about. Joe Flacco obviously has to improve. He has to be a little bit more consistent, but I think this is a team year in and year out. They're always in the hunt. They're always that team that ends up playing great defense. They always run the ball very well, and they're led by a great coach in John Harbaugh.
That defense led the league in turnovers last year. They had like 34. It was ridiculous.
The Ravens are a team that always feels like they matter. Like they're always going to be a player. But I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to look at the quarterback. Peter, you said something last week. We were talking about the Cowboys, and you were raising the question of truly, how good is Dak Prescott? Do we know yet? And there's a couple of guys like that. There's Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. How good is Joe Flacco? We've asked the question for years, is Joe Flacco elite? The question is now, is Joe Flacco even average? And I'm going to be really hard on this because we know how much money Joe Flacco makes and how much he's been around. I don't go into the stats too often, but this is really compelling. Over the last 5 years, if you look at guys who have 800 passing attempts, passer rating, Joe Flacco is 34th. 34th. He is behind Ryan Fitzpatrick and Brian Hoyer. He has not played well. He has not played average. He has not played decent. Joe Flacco needs to be a hell of a lot better because they're one of these teams that can't bring in a ton of free agents, that lose players because Joe Flacco broke the bank after the Super Bowl. So what I'm saying is, Joe, like, never mind elite, like, we got to pick up our game a little bit, and we don't have a shot against the Steelers.
Yeah, I think it's an important year for Joe Flacco. I think John Harbaugh has a lot of eyes on him. They haven't been in the playoffs in several years now, and you look at what they added. John Brown, a deep threat from the Arizona Cardinals, and Michael Crabtree. And I'm picturing Crabtree and Suggs in the same locker room. And you've got some veteran guys with big personalities. And what do you want when you go into Pittsburgh? You want guys who don't give a bleep. And that's those two guys. I think this team got a little tougher. I do think the Ravens can challenge the Steelers. But you're right. Joe Flacco. And
he's got to be
very interesting. 16th overall pick. If a Mayfield slides, if a Lamar Jackson's sitting here, do the Ravens in the first round start considering, well, who's our next quarterback? What's our next guy? That's a question to decide because you could say, take a star wide receiver, a Calvin Ridley, or take a defensive player and get back to Super Bowl now, or you start turning the page and say, well, what's next?
Well, if you draft a quarterback, then you're basically saying that Flacco's done. So I don't know if you can put that kind of, especially with that contract that he has. Like you said, he broke the bank on his contract, so he has to start playing up to that contract. He has to be the leader of the team. It's a quarterback-driven league, as they always say.